What's up everyone, welcome back to my channel. In my last video I talked about how do you know it's time to change careers. In this video I want to talk about another topic, which is what are the steps necessary in order to make a successful transition. So without further ado, let's get started. Now the first step that you need to do is to gain the self-awareness, right? I mentioned that last time. And there are many ways to gain self-awareness, but one of the most tried and true ways are assessments. And it could be personality assessments, it could be skills assessments, it could be value assessments, or just interest in general, right? So there's different ways to assess this. And it could be through surveys where it's like, you drop the data in and then they systematically spit it out for you and say like, based on your personality, you should be liking this kind of career, etc. There are other ways of assessing, such as writing a journal, and based on that data that you generate from your writing, you gain that self-awareness, and you kind of like take that outsider's perspective reading your own journal after you take an objective amount of time. And that's why journaling is so effective, is that you're able to write out your thoughts clearly, coherently, and if you read back on it, it's hopefully clear and coherent as well, or you can make sense of it. Now, taking this self-assessment, there are many different formats out there. There are many different systems out there for this. So in the ACT world of work, there are options for people to look at whether they're interested in people or things versus ideas and data. So people, obviously, is you're facing people. Things are like not people, like objects, right? Ideas and data is a little bit different. Ideas, it's more like high level, abstract, floating in the air, philosophical stuff. And data is what's on the ground, what is actually happening. And people lean towards one or the other, right? And different careers reflect that. So for example, a philosopher would obviously be interested in ideas, while a data scientist would clearly be more interested in the data, right? And you're both dealing with knowledge in this sense, but is it like high level knowledge? Is it floaty, amorphous, and like what is the meaning of life kind of stuff? Or what is the data really telling us what's going on the ground? So ACT World of Work, that's one example of an assessment. Another assessment would be the Holland Hexagon, right? And the Holland Hexagon has things such as like, do you lean towards realistic or social? Do you lean being investigative or enterprising? Do you lean towards being conventional or artistic? Other assessments would include the 8 Eggershine career anchors. And this would include things whether you lean towards service, being entrepreneurial, managerial, you like a lot of autonomy or not, challenge, you like challenging jobs, are you technical, do you prioritize your lifestyle, or do you prioritize job security, right? So there's a lot of aspects when it comes to evaluating whether a job is satisfying or not, what like in terms of its role, function, the nature of it. And the last one, which I'm the biggest fan of, is obviously the big 5 personality traits, which I've mentioned many times in this channel of mine. And I want to be very clear that these assessments are not meant to be a crystal ball spitting out answers that based on this finding and the algorithm crunches out a number that you should like this kind of career. Like, that's not what I'm talking about. What's important here is that it gives you more food for thought, perspectives and dimensions that you may not have considered in the past. Now, the next piece I would say is to research these potential career paths. So assuming you've developed a deeper understanding of what is a good fit for you, what are things that you like or what are things that you lean towards, the next thing really is to research, like what's out there. So you have that self-awareness, but is there anything out there that is aligned to that? So a client of mine has a PhD in Mongolian history. So like she literally studies Genghis Khan and how the Mongolian hordes took over Eurasia and all that. She's planning to leave academia to find a job that pays better than, universities. And after doing this assessment and working through sessions with me, we concluded that, hey, there are a lot of elements in writing and communication that would honestly be something that she may enjoy. And so that set her on a path to conduct research and see like, hey, what jobs out there involve a lot of writing, communication, and eventually she landed in a communications role at a big consulting firm. But without gaining that self-awareness, doing the research in terms of figuring, hey, this is my background, what have other people with a similar background as me, what have they done, right? Where have they ended up? And without doing that research, she would never have landed in a role that now pays six figures. Now, after you figure out what are the possibilities out there, you really need to figure out, hey, what are some of the transferable skills that I have, right? And so these would be some core skills, and there would also be skills that make you stand out relative to everyone else. So in my case, I transitioned from a history teacher to becoming an academic, to becoming a career coach and business person, and now I'm a manager at a games company for research. And the through line for all of this is that I like looking at people, I like working with people, I like coaching and teaching people, and I also eventually did research. By doing an inventory of what skills you have something to lean into that really helps you stand out as a candidate, or perhaps double down as core competencies within a candidate. So like there's always the core things, and then there's always the nice to haves, right? The final step in this process, I would say, is to network with people in your target industry. That comes down to having a thick skin, reaching out, asking for information interviews, and it really comes down to asking the right questions and figuring out, how is someone with my background going to be okay in this field? What are some things that I can really highlight? What are some things I can really lean on? Speaking of people who are in the industry, and rather than just doing desk research, a lot of us nowadays, we love to go online and just Google something like, hey, this is what the job's about. Like, until you actually speak to someone who's facing it day to day, no amount of Googling is going to tell you what the job actually entails and how you can position yourself to be successful in transitioning into that role. So perhaps the most important aspect of the research is actually networking, speaking with people in the industry, and asking for resources. What should I be reading? What skills should I be working on? What knowledge should I be building so that I can transition into that industry, especially when it comes to that critical moment where people are interviewing you and seeing like, hey, have you done the prep work to understand what you're getting into? And that will separate you from everyone else. And only after you figure all this information out should you go and update your resume and LinkedIn profile, right? Which is essentially the fifth and final step in this whole process. So you understand who you are, where you want to go, how to get there by speaking to people, and then ultimately tailoring your resume and LinkedIn profile to make this transition. And I cannot overstate the importance of not pursuing too many rabbits, right? Like, I think there's a saying where it's like a person who pursues two rabbits will lose both of them. So essentially, by having a clear target, you will dispel any questions that a hiring manager have that, hey, does this person really want this job? Has this person put in the effort to make it into this industry? So I'm in games, and when we interview people, a lot of people want to go into the games industry. But as a hiring manager, I really need to ask the question, has this person put in the effort to figure out what games is, what they need to be successful? Have they been networking? How much do they care? And that shows in the interview, and that shows in the conversations and everything that transpires after like the resume and LinkedIn and everything. And so that's it. Those are my 5 steps on how to make that transition, like whatever steps that you need to take to make this transition a success. And if you like this video, I hope you give it a like and subscribe or follow or whatever, the usual. And yeah, hope I see you around. Take care.